Morning.
Thank you. So as far as yesterday's Gemara, a little bit, I didn't get everything I wanted to yet, but Dr. Fine's question about is it possible that a woman will sell her ksuba or to her husband or be mochel ksuba? So I didn't get the clarity yet, but it could be that that's totally the machlokas. We said that according to a mayor, it will be considered as nus if a person lives with his wife without a ksuba. But Abud over there, we saw mentioned that he does seem to say it can be mochel ksuba. The Kesugi Lachar should be coming up tomorrow at the beginning of the next parak, and maybe we'll see more about that. The Gemara that spoke about yesterday about the possibility of someone's mochel, if she's mochel ksuba, that she lose mazonos. So we said that Rashi over there says that don't do the mazonos of after death. The Gemara said I wouldn't have said so because I'm just trying to find a place over here. Yesterday's Gemara here it was that Meshavot Tachastova, Mochel Ksuba Labala in the mazonos. So Rashi does say, as we saw yesterday, that's only the mazonos of her widowhood. That in the lifetime Rashi seems to say that Shol was not mochel the mazonos. The Ran happens to bring the Rambam that does imply that she loses the mazonos in his lifetime also, not because Tanai Ksuba Kiksuba, even if you hold the mazonos is the Raisa, but she's mochel it. So seems to be machlokas over there. I'm not sure what we paskin, but machlokas if she's only mochel. And the Gemara also seems to say that Rav Chisda doesn't argue. He just says I would have argued Meshavot Tachastova, but Lamaisi doesn't argue. So that seems to be the halacha. I didn't go very deep into it, but Mecheles Ksuba Ein La Mazonas and Machlokes Rashi and Rambam if she loses even the mazonas in her lifetime also. Okay, I didn't get clarity on the whole Gemara yet, but continue today. The Gemara Daf Nun Daled. So we said another one of the Tanai Ksuba is that the widow has the right to remain in the house and be supported, living in the house and also be supported until she takes the Ksuba. We had a machlokes, not a machlokes, but the Mishnah, the Mishnah says it depends on Yehuda and Golo if the Yorshim have the option of giving her the Ksuba and telling her to leave. We'll get to that soon. But so far it says that he writes the Ksuba that you have the right, the widow has the right to live in the house as long as she's an almana. Tani Rav Yosef bebesi below beviksi. Said over a brisa that dafka house is not a biksa. Biksa means a small house. And maybe even today also, I'm not sure in Hebrew if they call that a bikta. I'm not sure if that's how they call it in Hebrew, like a small little hut. So that would include. Taisva says it includes also that if he has two houses, he has a big house and a small house, so they don't have a right to push her off into the small house, the little bikta, but she has the right to be in the big house. But also it includes in this Gemara that if there's only a bikta, there's only a small house. So then they could say she doesn't have a right to live over there. And Rashi and Tosfos seem to say the case would be that if they, the Rosh I think says this, that the case would be that they want to move in and there's not enough room for everybody. So that much, she doesn't have a right. Again, the husband died, then she wants to continue living in the husband's house, but there's only a bikta. He didn't have a big house. He only had a bikta. And as long as he was alive, so then he and his wife were able to live over there. And now that he died, the kids want to move in, and there's not enough room for everybody. So then she doesn't have a right to take over the house, and that the kids should, the Yorshim should not be able to live over there. So she has no schos. In this case, she'll have to move out of the house.
So they have priority, children.
Right, the Yorshim have the priority. It means if it's a question of them getting the house to live in, or the widow is going to stay in the house, so they do have the right. The Rosh also talks about a case if he was only renting, if the father was renting a house, and now that he died, that they have to continue renting for her. That might be a machlokes poskim, maybe that doesn't include, maybe it's not included. It's only if he has a house, so they have a right. The widow has a right to continue living in the house, but only if he owns it. But if they have to shell out money from the Yerusha in order to support her rental, so that might be telling this sugi over here. But just to take the more simply, that the case that is talking about that there's only a small house, and if they want to move in, so then there's not room for both of them. So then they do have the right to move in, and she does not. That's bevesi v'lo beviksi. Now the question is, if she doesn't get the house, does that go together, package deal about mazonos? That means that it says in the ksuba that you're going to be sitting in my house. You're going to have a right to live in my house and to get mazonos. But here, the case is where she's not going to be staying in the house. Whatever the reason is, that there's only a bikta, so she's not going to stay in the house. So does she still have a right to get the mazonos? So it's a package deal that if she stays in the house, she gets mazonos. But if here's a case where she's not getting mazonos, she's not getting the house, so maybe there's no chiv mazonos either. So the more first starts of mazonos isle, she does get mazonos. He argued and says that no, it goes together. And if there's no house, then there's no mazonos either. But the Rashi, we don't pass like that. We pass like the first mandiyama that she does get food, even though she's not getting the house. There is an issue later on. The Gemara talks about if she doesn't want to live in the house, she has the right to live in the house, and the Yorshim are happy to give her mazonos and live in the house, but she wants to move out, but she still wants food. Then there's a possibility that the Yorshim could tell her that it's going to cost us more. If you're going to live someplace else, to give you food is going to be a bigger cost, because there are a lot of things that in the food we could save by all being together. If you want to move out by yourself, it could be they don't have to give him mazonos. But this is the case differently. Here's the case where she does want to stay, but they don't let her stay. They say that there's only a big thing, don't stay over here. So then we pass they do have to give her food. That even though she has no right to stay in the bikta because they have to move in, but she does get a right to get mazonos.
But she couldn't lose in two cases.
She might. My brother Rashi said she loses both. That it goes a package deal. If she gets the right to live in the house, she gets mazonos also. If not, then not. But we don't pass like that. We pass like that she does get mazonos. I just pointed out that if in the case where they do want to give her the house and give her food in the same house, and she wants to move out, she wants to go back to her father's house and still get mazonos, there might be that they could tell her that it's going to cost us too much. It's easier for us to support you if you're in the same house. A lot of the bills will be on the same. If you want to be in a different house, then we don't have to support you. Stay here, we'll give you mazonas. If you go, that's different Gemara. New Gemara. So it's taken for granted that once she gets married, she doesn't continue getting supported by the late husband's estate. It's only she's not married, not long as she's not married. How about if she starts hearing shidduchim? She starts listening, so she sees she's ready to get married, just didn't find the right shidduch yet. Is that does she still get supported from the husband's estate, from the dead husband's estate, while she's looking for shidduchim over here? So the Gemara starts, literally the words would mean that somebody asked her to marry, a second marriage, and she agreed. So now she stops getting mazonos from the old husband, even though she didn't get married yet, but she agreed to it in the Spicer. She agreed to get married. So she loses mazonos from the first husband.
Right. When we said that, I'll tell you when it's Spicer, when we said before that when does he change status? When she's taken from the Shut of a Baal through the
No, you're talking about the daughter. No, you're talking about the daughter who's changing from her father to. We're not talking about that. You were talking about that she had a husband, he died, and she's being supported from his estate, and now she wants to marry somebody else. So how do you say? Gig isn't there.
Didn't send shluchim. She agreed.
What's that to do with shluchim? No. This is
have to marry.
This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with how long does the husband obligate himself to support his wife after his death.
Right.
So as long as she's not interested in somebody else, once she's still being loyal to being his widow. Once she wants to get married to somebody else, so then she's not any more part of this household. She wants to get married to somebody else. Okay, so marry somebody else.
That's what I'm saying. There's a process.
He doesn't have to support her. He doesn't have to support her. It's not like a father that's supporting his daughter and from his estate. And now, when is he supporting her? When is the husband taking over? This is a husband to a husband, and he doesn't have to support her after she wants to marry somebody else.
Wow.
So this is the first shita. Right, that she's not being loyal. Not I don't want to say it in a way that sounds like she's doing something wrong. She's not doing anything wrong. She's allowed to get married after the first husband dies. But his chiv, his chiv in Ksuba to support her from his estate after he dies is only before she wants to get married to somebody else. Once she agreed to marry somebody else, she doesn't have a right to get mazonos from the first husband's estate.
Giloi das, you call it?
Connected.
They say Giloi das.
She seems to show that she's getting married to somebody else. But the more it talks about Halalas Baisi, as long as she didn't agree to marry, she does get supported, even though she seems to be looking for shidduchim already. That's because she didn't agree to marry somebody particularly, so she gets mazonos. Shmuel's the one who said this. This is Shmuel talking. So Rabbanan said, I heard from Shmuel, Amra machmas ploni bali yesh la mazonos. Machmas ploni adam she'enim muganim la en la mazonos. If the reason why she turns down a hatza'ah, she turns down a suggestion for a shidduch because she says, no, I'm a widow over there. My old husband, I'm not going to marry anybody. So then she continues getting mazonos. But if the reason why she turned it down is because it says it's not matim, it's not compatible. So then that's already a reason also not to get mazonos. Means the point is not if she agreed to get married. The point is that she agreed to listen to shidduchim. If she listens to shidduchim, so then she's saying that I'm not any more connected to my old husband, and therefore she loses mazonos. But if she says I'm not listening to shidduchim because I'm still a widow of my old husband, then she doesn't want. Then she still has a right to get mazonos. So the spice doesn't mean that she agreed to marry. It means that she agreed to listen. She agreed to listen to shidduchim. If she agrees to listen to shidduchim, then she really loses mazonos. What? That she agreed. Amar Rav Chisda, Zinsa, Ein La Mazonos. If she had relations with somebody, now she's not married, she's not a Eishes, she's a Pnuya. But if she also is not being loyal to the husband, because if she be, what I mean loyal, she's not looking at herself as a widow of Ploni, of her old husband, because she's being Mazana. That also shows that she's not connected to the old house. So also, Ein La Mazonos. The husband doesn't mean to give her Mazonos while she's being Mazana with other men. If she would have been staying home as a widow, so then, okay, you're honoring me that you're my widow, I'm one as Ploni. So then she gets mazonas still. But when she was mazonas, she doesn't get mazonas. If she starts putting on makeup, also that means she's showing that she's interested, that people should notice her, and that's also showing that she's interested in remarrying. Also, as a reason she shouldn't get mazonas. And the Gemara said these two opinions of Chisda and of Yosef. One said about zinsa, one said about kechlo pirchasa. Mandam zinsa kolshkein kechlo pirchasa. If she loses mazonas by being mazana, kolshkein she loses mazona if she puts on makeup and she wants to try to get attractive for other men. But not for shidduchim. But madam kichlo pirchasa avol zinsa isla my timer yetziransa. I didn't just fix up something I did over here. That should be v'les selchasa. I made a mistake. V'les selchasa. Okay. So this Gemara talks about that. There's a tzad to say that zinsa is not as bad. Of course, zinsa is bad. She's mazana. She's flirting with men. She's having relations with men. Of course, it's out of marriage. She's not married to anybody. But still, zinsa is a bad thing. But Gemara says that maybe it's not so bad as far as the mazonas. Means that she has a taiva. Not that she's officially, consciously leaving the first husbands. She's still loyal to she doesn't plan on getting married. She had relations with somebody, but not that she's not interested in staying a widow. But the one who's officially, consciously, she's getting makeup, she wants to consciously look for shidduchim now. That's more leaving the first. As far as leaving the first husband, it's more of a leaving. Not saying which is kosher. Of course, the one who's getting kechlo pirchas as the most should be big tzaddikus, and the one who's zinsa is not such a big tzaddikus. But we're talking about as far as leaving the first husband. So the one who's zinsa is not as leaving as much as the one who's kechlo pirchas. She's the one who's officially saying that I'm looking for shidduchim now.
There's a kechlo pirchas that she just wants to look respectable.
No, it's talking about for getting for dating. So that's the reason why she should more reason to lose mazonos. So we had a couple of so far. One was Shmuel said as long as she agrees to listen to shidduchim, that's when she loses. Rav Chisda spoke about zinsa, which is more of a chiddush because she maybe yetzer ansa, but still there was a Rav Chisda that says so. She loses mazonos for that also. She's not loyal to the old husband. Rav Yosef said she's making herself attractive to be able to see men. So that's also a reason to lose mazonos. So literally the words say we don't pass like all of them. We had Shmuel, and then we had Rav Chisda, Rav Yosef, three opinions of different cases where she loses mazonos from the first husband, and it says we don't pass it like that. Only if she demands a ksuba. If she goes to Bezin and says I want the ksuba, that means that now she's wants to end with the first husband and she wants to collect the ksuba. She only gets mazonos as long as she doesn't get ksuba. Once she gets ksuba, then she says that I'm finished. I'll take the ksuba, like lump sum of the ksuba, and then she doesn't get mazonos anymore. As long as she stays.
The additional reason why they mocked it on her not to show simanim outside of outside.
Again, as long as she's staying loyal to the first husband, that she says almana, she doesn't get ksuba, but she gets supported, and she stays in the house, but she doesn't get ksuba. Once she asks for ksuba, then she's finished, and to give her ksuba, they talk about it even if she didn't get the ksuba yet. Once she officially asked for the ksuba, also she stops getting mazonos. And just to point out, the Taisus over here says that even though the Gemara says that's the Taisus talks about that it shouldn't be a steer and Shmuel. Shmuel was over here, and this also is Shmuel. So in order not to make contradict, Taisus says that it only means to go against Rav Chisda, against Rav Yosef, but it could be that Tavas Subasa and Laksuba, and also if she agreed shidduchim, that's more than all these other things. If she's making herself attractive, it doesn't mamish mean like she agreed to shidduchim, and even if she didn't agree to a specific shidduch, but she agreed to hear shidduchim. So that Taisus says that this first case of Shmuel we do paskin like, even though we said lechsas chalan ishmael, that means two. You don't pass like Rav Yosef, you don't pass like Rav Chisda, but Shmuel himself is not going to be a contradiction. And either Tavas Ksubasa loses Bezdin loses Ksuba, and also Tavua Linase when the Spaisa to hear Shaduchim also loses Ksuba, loses Mazonos. I'm sorry. The Rush brings down here that the Rif argues, and it comes out of Machlokas and Shulchan Aruch, Machlokas Tanakama, Mechaber and the Ramah about this point about Tavua Linase. Does she lose her Mazonos when she agrees to hear suggestions for a shidduch? According, That's the question. When the Gemara says you don't pass like Shmuel, that's Chani Shmaisa, doesn't mean to knock off this also. Tyson says that Shmuel will be, in order to reconcile the two Shmuels, you pass like both of them, and Tevul Inase also is going to lose, and that's the Ramah. But the Shulchan Aruch goes like the Rif, that it's the Machlok is two Man Yamim in the name of Shmuel, of Nachman Amar Shmuel, Yehuda Amar Shmuel, and we pass like the second Shmuel, that she only loses if she's Tavas Subasa, but if she would listen to Shidduchim, she doesn't lose Mizonos yet.
Only she requests the Gam.
The Ksuba. She requests the Ksuba, then everybody holds that she loses Mizonos. So just to get the general, again, we're talking about a man died and his wife is being supported from his estate, living in his house and being supported. And if she demands Ksuba, then she loses the Mizonos, then she stops. And if she listens to Shidduchim to remarry, then it'll be a machlokes the poskim if we pass like this first Shmuel or not. Zin says she surely does not lose Mizonos, and if she puts on makeup and stuff, it's also not a reason to lose Mizonos. But if she listens to Shidduchim, she calls up Hashat Chanit, and that means he's mamish looking for a new Shidduch. So then is machlokes Rishonim and a machlokes Machab ben Ramah if she loses Mizonos or not. The most akash on the last thing that it said Tavas Subasa loses Mizonos. Well, no, does she lose Mizonos by being Tovei Ksuba? But you learned in the Brisa, Machak Subasa, Mishkan Subasa, Asak Subasa Potiki, La'acher, Ein Lo Mizonos. And it says they're pretty extreme, much more than just being Tovei Ksuba. It talks about that she sold her Ksuba. After the husband died, she sold her Ksuba to somebody else. She has the right to collect the Ksuba, and she sold it. That means the one who bought it is going to collect the Ksuba. This is a way of collecting. Or Mishkana, she made it as a collateral. She made her Ksuba. She needed a loan, and she put down the Ksuba as a collateral. That means even though she didn't collect it yet, but she's saying that the one who is lending her the money has a right to collect it. Or she made it in apoteki, which also is a kind of a shibud. She put a lien on it. So that's when she loses Mizonos. That's very extreme. That means she's really collecting the Ksuba. That's when she loses. But Tovas Ksuba, that's because she's demanded it, is not a reason that she should lose Ksuba, lose Mizonos. That's the most Akasha and Shmuel from the Brisa. Hani in Abu Tovas lo. It sounds only if she actually did things that are actually going to collect the Ksuba, then she loses Mizonos. But just to demand it in Bezdin is not a reason why she should lose the Mizonos. The Mayan says, Hani ben bebezdin ben shlo bebezdin. Tovas bebezdin in shlo bebezdin lo. It's not a contradiction. Shmuel's really right. Even though the Brisa says by selling it and putting it up for collateral, then she loses it. That's even not in Bezdin. But Shmuel's saying, if she demanded it in Bezdin, that's also a reason. Thank you. That's also a reason why she should lose Ksuba. So everything, these two things are true. Tavas in Bezdin. If she does Tovei Ksuba out of Bezdin, she told the Yorshim, I want the Ksuba. That's not enough to lose it. Only if she goes to Bezdin and demands, then she loses her Mazonos. But if she sold the Ksuba even out of Bezdin, also she loses the Mazonos. General idea again, what we're talking about, a woman, her husband died and she's living and being supported by the state. When does she lose the support? When does she have no more right to live in the house and to get supported? If she sells her Ksuba, if she gets her Ksuba, if she sells her Ksuba, even though they didn't actually collect it, but she sold it, so that means they have a right to collect it already. So that's how much collection on the Ksuba, then she surely loses her Ksuba. If she loses Mazonos. If she demanded her Ksuba in Bezdin, also she loses Mazonos. In Bezdin. If she demanded out of Bezdin, it's not a reason to lose the Mazonos, but if she demanded in Bezdin, she loses the Mazonos. And again, if she is listening to Shidduchim to remarry, that also might be a reason to lose Mazonos. That's a Mecholkes Rishonim. If that's good, we continue. The Mishnah said, the question was in the Mishnah, if the Yorshim have the right to tell the wife, the widow, that we'll give you the Ksuba and stop getting Mazonos, stop living in the husband's house. Again, that she surely, if she asks for Ksuba in Bezdin, then she loses the Mazonos. But how about the Yorshim? Is it her option or is it their option? Do they have the right to tell her, we're going to give you the Ksuba and it's all over, it terminates the Mazonos and the living quarters? So it says that in Galil and in Yerushalayim, they used to give the option only give an option to the widow, that she has the right to decide if she wants to stay, she could stay, and the Yorshim can't give her the Ksuba and kick her out. But in Yehuda, they gave the option to the Yorshim till the Yorshim agreed to give the Ksuba. If the Yorshim want to give Ksuba, they could also tell her to leave. So it seems to be machlokes, or two different minhagim. What if the Yorshim had the right to give her the Ksuba and to stop the Mazonos? Itma, Rava Malacha Kanshi Yehuda, Ushmola Malacha Kanshi God. Machlokes, who you pass them like? So it might even be not a minhagim, it might be machlokes mamish. What is the halacha? What does the Ksuba demand? Did the Yorshim have the right to terminate the Mazonos and give the Ksuba? So Rav said Lach Lakan Yehuda that they could. The Yorshim have the option of terminating the Mazonos, and Shmuel says no. Allah Lakan Golo, that it's her.
If they give the ksuba, if they don't have to consensus,
Right, right. She wants to stay. She says, I don't need the ksuba. I want to stay in the house and continue getting supported. And they say, here's the ksuba and go. So Yehuda says, Yanshe Yehuda said that she could, and Rav Passan like that. And Anshe Golo and also Yerushalayim did not do like that. That's Shmuel Paskin. That is her option. If she wants to stay, she can stay. Bavel, v'chol par v'doha, no kirav. Now, Dov v'chol par v'doha, no kishmuel. So Bavel, sometimes Bavel means the whole country, but there's also a city called Bavel. They say it's Baghdad. So that city of Bavel and all of its nearby districts, provinces, they had the custom like Rav. They wrote in the Ksuba like Rav that it's the Yorshim's option to stop it, to terminate the Mazonos. And Nada and that her provinces, they did like Shmuel, that it's the goes according to it's her option. It isn't the Yorshim. The Yorshim can't stop it. Story. He bas Mechuza, Tavis Nasiva Lenarda. There was a woman from Mechuza, a name of a city, Mechuza, that was married to a man from Narda. And Rashi tells us right away, the Gemara is going to say that Mechuza was part of was near Bavel. And two different minhagim. Also, look, I made the Rav Nachman. They came to Rav Nachman this question that the Yorshim wanted to give it a ksuba and stop the Mazonos, and she wanted to continue. Shama lekala de bas Mechuza. He recognized her accent, her dialect, that she's from Mechuza, and therefore he said, "Oh, so if you're from Mechuza, so then the Yorshim could terminate the Mazonos." Amalu Bavel b'chol v'abada no kirav. That Bavel and all of its provinces they go according to Rav, and Rav says that the halachas is like Anshe Yehuda, that the Yorshim have the option of terminating the Mazonos. Amulei von lanadon nesiva, but they told to Rav Nachman, but she married a man from Nada. It's true, she's from Mechuza, but her husband was from Nada. Oh, she said, oh, that's different. Amalu iachi Nada v'chol v'abada no kishmuel. Then it go according to the husband. If the husband wrote a ksuba, he means according to his custom. And since the custom in Nada was like Shmuel, that it is the option of the wife, the widow, and not the option of the Yorshim can't throw her out. So then the halach is like Shmuel, and the Yorshim cannot force her to take the ksuba and leave. Where is the gvul? This is not relevant nowadays, but in those days, still where is the gvul of Narda? Adecha desagi kavod Narda. I'm not sure what that means. Any Rashi on this? Kavod Narda. The measurement, whenever there's a certain measurement that they use in Narda, wherever they use that measurement, that was still the provinces of Narda. That minig will be dependent on Narda. But once they don't use that measurement, that's not the provinces of Narda. New Gemara, new sugya. Itmar. Almana. Rav Amar Shaman Mashallah, Ushmol Amar Ein Shaman Mashallah. It comes now time to give her the ksuba. And the question was that her clothing, is her clothing also included in what the husband what's going to be deducted from the ksuba? The husband gave her clothing in his lifetime. He gave her clothing, and now comes time after death, or maybe even if he divorces her, and she gets ksuba, which means that she gets mana masayim, and also she gets the nedunya, things that and tosefes. The question is, when we're paying her the clothing that the husband gave her during their marriage, does that consider the husband's? And now when they're giving her a ksuba, we can deduct that. You want to take the clothing? You want to take your clothing? The clothing is the husband's clothing. So if you want to take it, so then we're going to evaluate it, and that's going to be deducted from the ksuba because that's not yours. Or do you say that whatever clothing she has, that's considered a present? The husband gave a wife a present and it's hers. And now when it comes time to pay ksuba, that's besides. The clothing goes for free. She gets the clothing, and besides that, he has to give the ksuba. So that seems to be a machlokas. Says that by Almana, not by a divorcee. I'm not sure. Almana, Rav Amar Shaman Mashallah, Shmuel Amar Ein Shaman Mashallah. According to Rav, you evaluate whatever she's wearing, and that is deducted from the ksuba. She doesn't get, if she's supposed to get 200 zuz, she gets 200 zuz, deducting the clothing that she's with, because that's also a payment for the ksuba. It's not hers, it's his. So now if they're going to give her ksuba, they deduct whatever value the clothing is. It seems in this Gemara that it has to do with because she's wearing it, but it seems from the Hemshech, not that because she's wearing it. It means clothing, if she's in the closet also. Clothing, it's hard to say, Shmuel says, Ein Shaman Mashallah, that doesn't go into the deduction. There's no deduction. That's hers. The husband gave her the clothing, it's hers, and now if he has to give ksuba, they give her ksuba, mana masayim, whatever it is, so that's besides the clothing. The clothing is hers. That's a machlokas. According to Rav, you do evaluate the value of the clothing that's on that she's wearing or in the closet, and you deduct that from the ksuba. According to Shmuel, you don't. That's for free. She got the clothing. We'll continue. The Gemara is going to say sooner you pass like, but there's in parentheses over here that it seems to be unrelated, a little related, but not mamash our subject. Lakit is we have that in Arab in Schiru Lakito. It's kind of a worker, and for some reason the balabayas, the boss, he clothed the worker. And the question is also now when the worker leaves, does he get the clothing for free, or does that get deducted from his salary? So the two opinions of Rav and Shmuel, they happen to change opinion. They changed the opposite opinion when it came to Balakit. According to Rav, that's given for free, and according to Shmuel, that's part of the salary. Rav Kana Masli v'chein Balakit. Machlokes now in the later generation, what Rav and Shmuel held about Balakit. It doesn't seem to be inherently dependent or the opposite. It seems to be a separate subject. When a person gives clothing to his worker, whatever the custom was in those days, to give uniform or clothing to a worker, so this is given as a present, and then when he leaves, he takes it along for free, or is it not a present? Then if he takes it along, so then it's deducted from his salary. So lucky is this kind of a worker. We had it in Erevin, Schiro Lakito. It's a kind of a hired worker. Over there,
not the clothes, it's actually
no, it's the worker. It's the worker. Rashi says something over here. Where's Rashi? Look at Sachir. Sachir Shagor base Balabayas. It's a hired worker that lives by the Balabayas, and he's given clothing. That's part of the deal. And the question is, does he get it for free when he leaves? So one says yes, one says not. Either it's the same opinion as over here by Almana, or it's the opposite. It doesn't seem to be inherently dependent. They gave a simon to remember the opinion that says that both the same. The opinion that says that both of them are the same. The Yasam and Almana. So the Almana is our case, the Almana, and the Yasam. This Lakit is not Almana, not a Yasam. He's not an orphan, but maybe he's called an orphan over here because he's. Rashi says, why is he called? Somebody says, why is he called the Yasam? Yasma Lakit. Rashi doesn't say. Rashi doesn't say why is he called. Why is he called? Maybe because that was a job that an orphan would get, or because he's not getting it. He's not getting the clothing at the end. The word shlachu, the shlachu puk. Shlach means to undress, and puk and leave. So the Yasam and Almana means that they don't get the opinion that says that they don't get the clothing for free. That means that the clothing is also deducted from the payment. So that was a side point. And now
that he doesn't have to pay for a brand new. Maybe work for half a year and the same.
No, the only question is if he gets it for free or not. That's the only question. Does he get it for free? The clothing that he got, or the woman that got clothing, does she get that for free? Or does that get deducted? There was a present that she got and that's finished, and now you have to give ksuba, so give a whole ksuba, or it's deducted from the ksuba because you didn't give it to her only as long as she's married.
Why are we comparing these two?
And not comparing it, it's just saying there's a similar question over there. It doesn't seem to be dependent, but it's a similar question. The same way we talk about the almana, that she was given, wife is given clothing, is it given as a present? And nafkamina, when she gets ksuba, does it get deducted or not? And the same question would be by this worker that also got clothing from his boss. Does he get it as a present and he leaves, he takes it along for free or not? Same question. It's the same case. Same scenario, but not that it's dependent. It could be very different. When a person gives his wife clothing, or when he gives a worker clothing, it doesn't have to be the same thing. It could be the opposite. It could be the same, but it's going to be incidentally the same. It's not bad same.
Often when I think of a worker getting clothing now, that there's a uniform that they wear, and then it doesn't really belong to
Right. So you're talking about a different scenario. Nowadays, you don't give the clothing at all. They give it back to me at the end of the day. That's not yours at all. But it could be in those days there was some kind of a giving of the clothing. That's the question.
Okay.
And over there, they also take here. They surely take it when they leave. The question is, does it get deducted?
Yes.
In your case, you give it back to the company. It doesn't belong to you. You have a police uniform. It doesn't belong to you. Give it back. But in those days, it seems that this worker did get clothed, and the question was if he gets it for free or it gets deducted. Now we get into halacha. Amar Rav Nachman. Afagav the tam kimasis kabasei de Shmuel. Still hilchos kabasei de Rav. Even though the Mishnah sounds like Shmuel, in this past case, we just spoke about that the clothing, does the almana get it for free or is it deducted? Is it hers or is it his? In other words, who does it belong to? Is it her clothing and now that's not deducted anymore, or is it his clothing and therefore when he pays the ksuba, it gets deducted? So in the Mishnah, it sounds like Shmuel, but the halacha is like Rav. And then the Gemara is going to bring where's the Mishnah sound like Shmuel? It's going to bring a Mishnah now. Ditnan. This is the Mishnah which sounds like Shmuel. And then the Gemara is going to explain if it's a Mishnah like Shmuel, like Shmuel, how can it pass like Rav? It's a Mishnah like Shmuel. We'll see that in a second. But first, it brings this Mishnah. Ditnan. Ein lo lo biksus ishto v'lo biksus banav v'lo b'seva shesav lishman v'lo b'sad nalam chadashim shalakach lishman. So here's talking about a person who's makdish his estate. Was he makdish also the clothing that his wife is wearing? It means he makdish everything I own. I'm makdish. I consecrate everything that I own. Does that include also his wife, the clothing that his wife is wearing, or the clothing that his children are wearing? So the Gemara makes it seems that depends on whose is it. Did he give it to her as a present? So then when he's makdish his estate, it's not his anymore. He gave it already to his wife. He gave it already to his children. So it should depend. It should be dependent on the question of Rav and Shmuel. When a person gives his wife clothing, is he giving it to her as a present, or is it still his? If it's still his, so when he consecrates all of my estate, that includes the clothing also.
Who keeps his wife's clothing that he buys?
Who's it? Who? What do you mean keeps? He doesn't keep it in his closet,
Yeah,
but
I'm saying how could it be his possession? But he gives his wife it.
Does she get it? I mean,
when he dies. So it could be things are different. Also has to do with the das b'nei adam. But here it's talking about when a person gives his wife clothing, is it still his or not? Is it his monetary or not? Here the question nafkamina would be by makdish. The Gemara doesn't see a difference by paying the ksuba. At the end, you want to know whose is it? Is it his? So now it gets deducted from the ksuba because that's not hers. It's his. Or hektish, that his makdish is estate, does it include his wife's clothing or not? Because even though I gave it to her to wear, but it's still his. So when he says I'm makdish everything that I own, so he also owns his wife's clothing, the clothing that his wife is wearing. Also, Marich Chasas, somebody obligated himself to give Erech, and the question is if he has enough money or not. Does he have money to pay for the Erech? And Erech goes according to the age and gender, and it says a certain amount of money. And does he have enough money to pay for it? So it says if he doesn't have money, he doesn't have money. But this is called his money, his wife's clothing. Maybe that's also his money. So here it says in the Mishnah that the wife's clothing does not go into the cheshbon. Einlo, lobux is tishtov, lobux is banav. The hektish doesn't take his wife's clothing, doesn't take his children's clothing. What's the matter?
That's what I thought. It's
because you think like
because they
you're saying
acquire
like
it, as they wear it. It's
They don't acquire it.
you can't acquire it wearing it only if someone's giving it to you, only if it was given. So when the husband gives his wife
So,
clothing,
okay,
is
so
he giving
I
it to her?
The old school opinion that the person who buys his children clothing doesn't hold on to it.
I don't know what the old school is. This is older than your school. This is Shmuel and Rav, but they're arguing about it.
Old modern words.
This is Shmuel, Machlokes Rav and Shmuel over here. This is what we're talking about. Shmuel said that he gave it, and because you're saying like Shmuel, that's okay. And Rav said no, that it still belongs to him. The Gemara continues about clothing of his wife, clothing of his children. Rashi says that it means that if
No,
he,
I had a loch child over here. Someone gave the kid allowance. The kid bought cigarettes. Whose do cigarettes belong to, the father or the kid?
so you're
Maybe
saying
a child over here. When the father gives the kid money, does he mean to give it to him totally, and then the kid belongs to the kid? Or
if it's money, I could hear that it's different. If it's money, is money. Money means spend it, and it could be that he could eat it, he can buy an ice cream, So maybe money is different. But here I don't know, could be. But here it talks about clothing and objects, so then maybe it still belongs to the father. So here it says that the father does not own the clothing of his wife. He does not own the clothing of his children, and also several lishman. If they dye clothing for the color for the lishman for their sake.
For their sake.
For the purpose of giving it to them, that already makes that it should belong to them. Also, new shoes, sandals that he bought for them that also makes it theirs is not his anymore. So it seems to be a Mishnah like Shmuel that when he gives his wife or children clothing, it belongs to them. So he said, Rav Nachman said, even though the Mishnah is like Shmuel, he passed on like Rav. If you say the Mishnah supports Shmuel, so why should pass like that, like Rav against the Mishnah? Amalei, I didn't mean to say that it's mamash like Shmuel. It sounds like Shmuel. L'chora kishmuel v'hita. At first glance, it sounds like Shmuel. Here's the word l'chora, which we talk about. We use the word very often, but it's not in the Gemara too often. Here's where the Gemara is. L'chora kishmuel v'hita. Even though
it's also something about looking.
V'hita means like running. Running through it, like at first glance, running, it does sound like Shmuel. But if you look into it deeper, you'll see that it's not. It's not Dafka by the Shmuel, and therefore the Rav. Rashi says the word l'chora. Rashi says
Ostensibly, it seems like
what?
I thought it comes from the word like to look at or the light.
So I don't know. Rashi seems to say that the word is pisom. Rashi, third wide line, he goes on the word l'chora. He seems to translate it as pisom. Suddenly, I don't know. The word Riyat Rashi says merutzas, merutza, like they're running. They're running, like going through it. It sounds like Shmuel, but the way Rashi translates the word Lachora seems to
suddenly.
just almost suddenly. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. They say it's an Aramaic word. It's not a Hebrew word.
What's
So
that?
the word
Like it had been, I thought
Lachora.
it was like bringing to light.
So whatever we think is because we think so. Lachora, that's why we think so. But
Ostensibly. I thought ostensibly.
okay, that's the idea. That's surely the idea. Question only about the translations. Rashi seems to translate it as pisom.
Suddenly running.
He reads on the side over here. If you look on the side, it says v'orach erech ke'or pirush k'sha'ata poseach kodem shatayin ba ta'ala al daitcha shehi kishmol l'chor loshen Aramahu. He says that it's Aramaic, and the idea that I was saying that it seems when you first look at it, it looks like it, but it doesn't. I don't know the exact translation. Okay. Anyway, here's the word l'chor. It's not common in the Shas. We used it all the time, but here's where it is in the Gemara. Yes, please. So anyway, what happened? That he said, even though it says that there's Mishnah like Shmuel, I don't mean to say that the Mishnah is actually right as Shmuel. It seems like that, but if you look into it, it's not necessarily. My timer, what's the difference in the Mishnah? The Mishnah was that he gave it to her to use Lemekam Kameh, to stand before him, means as long as he's around. So he gave it to his wife that he doesn't have rights to it. So when he's makdish and he's still alive, the case of the Mishnah was he's still alive. So when he's makdish, is not kameh, right? He didn't give it to her for the intention of taking it and leaving. So therefore, as long as he's alive, so then it's hers. She has the right to use it, and he's not makdish it. But the case before we're talking about is when she's almana, that she's collecting ksuba and she's leaving. So not necessarily does it mean to give it to her forever. It could be that only as long as he's alive he gave it to her. But once she's not using it for him anymore, so then he did not give it to her. And that's what the Gemara Paskin is passing like Rav, that the clothing of his wife does belong to him. And when it comes time to give the ksuba, we do evaluate the clothing that she has, and it's deducted from the ksuba.
When they were new or as they are when
No.
I'm asking about-
Whatever it's worth now. What are we giving to? We're giving to her now. Is whatever the value is. Whatever the value is now. Whatever the value is now. Now this is his, and it's being deducted from her ksuba.
Okay, so when a husband gives his wife clothing for the hajj, he's giving it to her to wear, but according to Rav,
It still belongs to him.
belongs to him as part of it. Would be deducted from the ketubah.
Right. The Gemara says a story about this issue, even though it has two dots, but it's still the same sugya. Kalsa de Bey Bar El Yashiv have a katavak subasa meyasme, the daughter-in-law of the household of El Yashiv. There's somebody El Yashiv.
This is the
We have in the pasuk. El Yashiv is in a pasuk. It's a pasuk in where one of the Kohen Gedolim was El Yashiv was his name, and you have here also Rav El Yashiv. It doesn't say here. It seems that it's who are we going to see here? Ravina. You see, it's pretty late. Pretty late. Yes, please. Pretty late. So here there was a daughter-in-law of the family of El Yashiv. Have a tabak suba. So her husband had died, and she wanted ksuba. She was demanding ksuba. Have a kamamti lahula beidin. They were on the way to the bezdin to about collecting of the ksuba from the Yorshim. Amri zila lan milsa the tizli hachi. They wanted, we'll see right away, their plan was they wanted her to bring out all of her expensive clothing because it's going to be deducted from the ksuba. That was what their plan was. So they told her that it's cheapening to us that you're going to, like this, you're going to the Nishmatis, you're going in rags to Bezdin, put on your nice clothing. Put on your nice clothing, you're going to Bezdin. It's not, doesn't pass that you're coming to Bezdin in old clothing. Put on your nice clothing. She put on all of her clothing. They came to the Bezdin. And he told them that we pass like Rav that says that you do deduct all that's on her, means her clothing. So no difference if she's wearing it or not wearing it.
So
I think.
why have to get it to wear it? Why don't they tell Bethany to check her closet?
Right. So I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I think the pshat was just to bring it out. This way is a.
Why have to bring it out? Just say Bethany should know she has a big fancy wardrobe.
They could be they don't know themselves how much they're going to go into a wardrobe to find their clothing.
It's a lot of money.
But this is a mechubadik way of doing it. This is a
No, but
mechubadik
it's
way.
only getting you part of it. She has.
No, it says there, it says
She
lekul. She put
she
on all.
don't wear all the clothing. She
That means
only
that-
had one set of clothing.
I'm not sure. It could be nowadays.
They didn't have Shabbos, okay, even a man
It
only
could
has
be.
Shabbos on Yom.
It could be whatever they wanted that she should put on. She put on. There was they knew it was a fancy mean coat. Put on the fancy mean coat. You're going to Besdin. Whatever that was the interest over here. Unless they have another shot.
Bringing Missouri to an money.
It's not misery. She owes it. She owns it. It's supposed to be deducted.
I totally understand the technicalities.
It's not misery that she owes money. Not she owes money. They're giving her ksuba, but they want to know how much they have to give her.
I
So
lost my precious gift, my husband, and now you want me to.
no, you can keep you can keep it, but it
Charge
doesn't go on the ksuba. That's
No, I
part of
know
the ksuba.
Again, I understand the technicality.
If you want to give presents to the almana, it's very nice. You can give double, triple, whatever you want to do. But that's all nothing to do with the din. The din is that they all ksuba. Why does she cry to Hashem? Because someone took.
She's getting.
Because she's only getting 200 zuz.
She doesn't have enough money.
And maybe, she has an estate to keep going.
If she's poor, so we go to give her tzedakah. That's nothing to do with the subject of how much someone owes her. If she owes somebody money. No, but there's no emotion over here. The question is 200 zuz, and the 200 zuz is deducted the money that she got. She got part of she's taking this home. She's keeping this jewelry. So fine, you can keep the jewelry, but it's worth 50 zuz, and we owe you another 150. You want us to give you 200 besides that? Ksuba's not 250, it's 200. So you have 50 already, and here's another 200. Here's another 150. New Gemara. So I'm just saying what Rashi. I'm a little bit stuck here, but the Rashi seems to say that a man, gave an dunya to his daughter, a dowry to his daughter. Rashi says was a tzavash chimera, that he was dying, and he said, "Give the dunya to my daughter." Rashi says, "The dunya lebrat, give the dowry to my daughter." And our question is, if the price goes up or down, that's going to be the two sugis now. If they got more expensive, what got cheaper? And he said how much. Maybe the guess is also he said how much it is. How much the dunya they should give. Rashi says, yes. There was a certain amount that was considered the dunya, and it was worth a certain amount of money. And then zol dunya, then the price went down. So does she have a right to that amount of money that he had originally given, or the object, which now the price went, whatever, 10 dresses. 10 dresses used to be worth 400, and now 10 dresses is only worth 300. That they have to give from the estate.
From the time that she said.
From the time that he said that the father said give, and at that time it was expensive, and give her $400 worth, or give her those things that he had said to give, and now it's only worth $300.
So 100 comes back to the.
Then they can get. Rabbi Idi Bar Oben pornally asked me. So Rashi says porn means the revach, the difference goes to the yisomim. It means that they only have to give the object and not the value. Even though he said give a certain amount, $400 of $4,000, whatever he said, give that to the dunya for the daughter. But if the price goes down, they just give those objects, and the rest of the change they could keep. And now the opposite story. Yahuda Amalahu and Amud Beis. Arba me'azuzi min chamra lebas. 400 zuz of the wine should go to the daughter. So he gave that wine as the nadunya for the daughter. Also, he said amount 400 zuz. But here, ayaka chamra, the opposite, that it got more expensive. So do they have to give the 400 only, or they have to give that amount of wine, which became more expensive now? So again, Amr Rav Yosef, Rav Chali asked me that the benefit goes to the Yisomim. It seems that's not consistent. That in the case where even if it gets cheaper or more expensive, the Yisomim gain. That if the price goes down, they give the object and they save the money. If the price goes up, they just give the value and they could keep the difference. They don't have to give the same amount of the object, which now is worth more. They only give the maximum of the amount of money that he said. Either way, the Yisomim don't lose, gain or don't lose. Yes, please.
No.
New story. Kreve Rabbi Yochanan. Hava lehu itas abba. Tahava kamapsada mizone. The relative of Rabbi Yochanan. We had a similar story. Also a relative of Rabbi Yochanan. They had a father's wife. We had the same story before. A father's wife. They she needed a refuah. Shein lo kitzvah. They changed it to yesh lo kitzvah. That was a question about the orchei adayonim. But here it says that he had a relative. Rabbi Yochanan had a relative who had a father's wife that was being mafsid mazonos. So Rashi said she was eating. She was eating a lot. She was eating a lot, or she was eating expensive, extravagant eating, and they were scared that when she's going to die, she's going to be a big expense. Their father's going to die. They're going to get the Yerusha, but they have to support the almana, and she has a big budget for her diet. She eats by restaurants every night, whatever the husband did, and they were scared that she'll be eating away from their Yerusha, a lot of money. They're going to have to be supporting her on a very high standard of living. Also, look, they asked Rabbi Yochanan for an Eitzah, the relative of Rabbi Yochanan. There's any Eitzah for this? What's going to happen? The father's going to die, and then we're going to have to support his wife, his widow, with such a big standard of living.
A lot of women that like to walk around with carcass at shrine just for a while.
So if that was across them in the husband's lifetime, maybe they have to support her according to the standard that she was used to in the husband's lifetime. Should have also highlighted the next word. Go to your father, he's still alive, and ask him to designate a piece of land that should be designated for him mazonos after he dies.
And that and only that.
So that's the question. So Rashi's bothered that he can't do that. That if it costs more, it costs more. So Rashi. So yes, what does Rabbi Yochanan mean? Rashi doesn't understand. So Rashi says that maybe she'll agree. Maybe she'll agree to be satisfied with that. She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. But maybe if she hears that this piece of land is going to be designated to Yom Mazonos, she'll be happy even if it comes to an end. It's a designated amount. And then if it gets used up, it gets used up. Maybe she'll agree. She doesn't have to agree, but maybe she'll agree. If she agrees, so then you're safe.
Well, he's putting a kitzvah on it. He wants to
Right, a maximum.
Like I said.
Also, look, I made the Rish Lakish. They came to Rish Lakish. Amalahu Kolshken Shemibul Amazonos. Rish Lakish didn't understand that that's a way of saying that that's only that. If he's going to designate a piece of land for the Mazonos, it means besides the regular Mazonos. This is going to be. It's going to be besides the regular Mazonos. She has a regular budget for her Mazonos. Now you're giving her a piece of land that's going to be even besides the regular Mazonos.
It's not what Rabbi Yochanan was saying.
Right. But the Rish Lakish says that's what I say. That if you're going to designate a piece of land, then it's going to be besides. It's not going to be a. It's not on the contrary. It's even adding on more. It's not limiting her. It's giving her even more. They told her Shlokish, but our relative Rabbi Yochanan didn't say that. He said that that's a maximum. If she agrees, that's good enough. It's going to be a ceiling. It's not going to be plus. He said that give her the mazonos that she's supposed to get, and if you're not going to, I'm going to take a Yochanan out of your ear. What does that mean? He's arguing with Rabbi Yochanan. He says no. He said to the relatives. He said to the family, you're relying on Rabbi Yochanan. I'm going to make sure you're not going to mention Rabbi Yochanan.
Where is it?
What?
The Iloma.
The Ilo. If you don't give her mazonos that she's supposed to get, I'm going to take Rabbi Yochanan out of your ears. Any Rashi on that?
What's the last word?
May unaichu from your ears.
Your ears. Okay.
In other words, I disagree, and it's not. Don't rely on him. That Rabbi Yochanan was living. Also, look, Rabbi Yochanan. They came back to Rabbi Yochanan and said, "Rish Lakish is arguing on you." What could I do? Rabbi Lakish is arguing. Means. I'm a limizonos, bimalomazonos. I'm a bimizonos, katzlamazonos. Depends what word you use. Before I said the word limizon, I said here, go give her a designated land for limizonos. But here the Gemara says it depends what word you use. Limizonos or bimizonos. If he says limizonos, then Rish Lakish is right. Then he agrees to Rish Lakish that if he said limizonos, that could be understood that besides the mazonos that she's supposed to get, this is also for mazonos. But if he said give her designate this piece of land for mazonos, that means for the obligation of mazonos, and that's it. Then it's cut. Right. Then it's going to be a set price. So we finished what is this? The fourth parak. Now it's going on to the fifth parak. So stop here, and Bez Hashem will continue tomorrow.
What did it say? What did Rabbi Yochanan say?
He said it depends if he said limizonos or bimizonos.
Oh, so he's actually before
No. Rabbi Bo said that.
Our gear says limizonos, but maybe you got it wrong.
Maybe. Before it said limizonos, and still it's limiting it. And here it says, I heard from Rabbi Yochanan himself that the difference between limizonos and bimizonos, it seems like you're passing like Rabbi Yochanan against Rish Lakish, that if it was bimizonos, it is considered a stop. Rish Lakish didn't seem to differentiate. I'm not sure. But according to the halacha, that's what it seems to say. If he said designated piece of land, limizonos, then it's adding on. But if he said Bimizonos then is making a
Rabbi
sealing on it.
Abba is speaking sometime afterwards. He's giving it.
He says, I heard from Rabbi Yochanan.
Oh, yeah.
I heard from Rabbi Yochanan, this is the difference. It says limizonos or
I
bimizonos.
seem to recall that Yochanan being very, very harif when it came to his relationship to Reish Lakish.
He even says, "Shekineg
He
more
seems to
esa,
be- he
more
seems to
esa,
be- he
shekineg
was,
dicholagalan." Okay, what can I do? He argues.
Martinez.
Okay, so we'll be back in about 10 minutes to continue Pirkei Avos. Yeshikov, everybody. Thank you. Yeshikov.
Thanks, man.